us this morning, Permanent Secretary Finley Jeffrey. We also have joining us Dr. Jermaine Bristol, the head of the nephrology unit at the General Hospital. Good morning to our distinguished panel. Without further ado, I will turn over to Minister LaCrette, who will begin this morning's proceedings.
Thank you very much, Press Secretary. Good morning to the citizens of this Tri-Island state. Good morning to the Media Workers Association that's present here this morning. And also good morning to all medical practitioners across the Tri-Island state, and also all allied healthcare professionals and all the auxiliary staff who work at our clinics and other outpost stations where health is mandated for this nation. Pleasant morning to all. This morning I have the privilege of having one of my clinicians with me from the General Hospital, and Dr. Bristol is going to just give you a brief update as it relates to the operations of the nephrology unit and the nephrology machinery, open and close inverted commas, dialysis, so that you can have some understanding as to where we are, a status update as to where we are and what the nation can look forward to in the coming months re-dialysis. I must pop off the scene at this particular point in time. My medical director has a medical emergency in her family, and as a result of that, I personally want to be there with her and her family to add some comfort. So God bless you. To the media workers, if you have any questions regarding any aspect of the Ministry of Health, you can reach out to my secretary, and I will definitely ensure that I get back to you later on during the day to answer your questions. God bless.
Thank you, Minister. We will now invite Dr. Bristol. Dr. Bristol, if you would not mind joining us at the head table.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here this morning. Just a quick update. Nephrology, as the word suggests, is dealing with issues relating to the kidneys. Currently at the General Hospital, we have an entire department whose role is to ensure that we provide holistic kidney care. So we start at prevention of kidney disease. We want to make sure that we screen for kidney disease. We treat persons who have kidney disease, whether in hospital or as outpatients. And we also provide treatment for kidney failure. So that is basically the scope of what we do at the nephrology department. At present, we have a nice unit that has been set up for us. We do all of the prevention. We provide in-hospital care and outpatients clinic. In terms of treatment, we have already launched peritoneal dialysis, which is the first form of treatment for persons who have kidney failure, where the patients get specially designed fluids and they can do their treatments at home by themselves, where they put these fluids in through a tube that would have been inserted in their bellies. They leave it to stay for a while, and that helps them to get rid of the toxins and the excess fluid that would have been building up. The next treatment option is hemodialysis. That is where the blood is taken out of the body, cleaned, and returned to the body. We have all of the equipment and so already set up at the hospital to commence hemodialysis very soon. We are currently in the process of testing our water, retesting our water to make sure that it is of the best quality to provide our patients with standard care to avoid issues and complications. We have had our nurses trained, and last Thursday we actually had a practice session with a live patient, which went very well. So in essence, we are ready So we are just now awaiting that last set of testing that we are in the process of doing. And once we've done that, we'll be ready to officially launch. And the final form of treatment is transplant, which we do not provide in Grenada, but we are in the process of establishing a relationship with Guyana through which we can get that services. We already had a patient who went to Guyana last year and got transplanted. So we're just looking to further cement that relationship so that we can have more patients receiving transplant, which is the ultimate form of treatment for kidney disease, because basically through a donor you're going to get another kidney. So you're not just trying to clean the blood outside, you're actually getting a kidney placed into the body to pick up the slack that your own kidneys have failed to do. So that is where we are right now in terms of what we are waiting to do.
Thank you for this update, Dr. Bristol. Now we will have an opportunity for the media to ask you questions once we've completed this section. I now invite Minister Andrew to give us an update on the education front.
So thank you very much, Press Secretary, P.S. Jeffrey, Dr. Bristol, members of the media, and Grenadian citizens listening at home and abroad. Good morning. The pleasure is mine to greet you today, and let me take the opportunity to welcome back to this new school term all of our stakeholders, or principals, or teachers, our parents, or students, and all the stakeholders to this 2022-2023 academic year. There are a number of issues that I'm sure persons are reeling to get information on, and so I'll start with the first one, the issue of TAMCC. It's been an outstanding matter, but I'm pleased to report today that we have made significant strides in addressing the impasse at TAMCC. In fact, we now have, after several meetings with the unions, we've met with the principal, we've met with the registrar, so we've had significant meetings with the stakeholders in TAMCC, and we have made significant strides. We now have a council in place, and in fact, council has convened its meeting, its inaugural meeting, the first meeting, Friday gone, and the results have been extremely encouraging. So to date, council is in place. We have had a resolution passed by council, in essence, staff and the unions agreeing to return to work and end the impasse upon government's commitment, which we have already made, to pay the close to $3.185 million towards the payment of outstanding fees and increases. Now, there are outstanding arrears, back payment, and there are increases, and so that has to be leveraged against both. Now, when all is put together, it's a significant figure, but we are willing to advance that much, and the unions have agreed that they are prepared to accept this while we deal with some of the other more protracted, long-standing issues related to TAMCC. So we made grounds, and there is this resolution. In fact, as of yesterday, members of the represented by the Grenada Union of Teachers have gone back to work. So we are quite pleased to report that. There are one or two other things related to a commitment from government as to a timeline for the payment of the retroactive sections. We'll be quite happy to do that once we have verified figures as to what those are, and then we can determine a timeline for payment even in tranches. But given where we were, I'm quite happy to report that. Let me say too that the decision has been taken to have registration commenced on Monday, September 5th, which is a 1-week delay. But given all that has been happening, we are satisfied that we are heading in the right direction and services will resume as per usual. So we have some further steps to go, but as relates to TAMCC, I'm satisfied. The council has brought a very conciliatory atmosphere, and we know we have some more work to do, but we're in a good place with TAMCC. In terms of the readiness for the reopening of mainstream schools, I'm happy to report again that most of our schools, both primary and secondary, pre-primary as well, are ready for reopening. And there are, however, about 9 schools whose reopening schedule as of Monday 29th were affected, because the planning week, most schools are expected to have their staff come in to prepare, to clean and all of that, and to get ready for the term. And because of the construction and repairs work taking place on some of those sites, we've not been able to accommodate in some of those schools. So I'm going to list those schools, but mind you, even though some of those schools are affected, it won't be 1 for the whole week. 2, there are mitigatory plans to address the challenges. In other words, some staff are prepared to meet online. Some staff have found alternative sites just for the planning week. And the good news is that all of those schools, based on the advice that we have from the engineers and the project team, all of those schools will be ready for opening on Monday 5th September 2022, provided nothing untoward should happen. So I can briefly share the list of those schools so that persons in the community can be aware. St. Anne's Catholic, which is Rose Hill Preschool, and the date for having those delivered and ready is Wednesday 31st. So we're looking at tomorrow to have those ready. So there's work taking place there now, but based on what we are told by the contractors, based on what we are told by our project team, it's likely to be available on the 31st. St. Paul's Government, that will be available from Wednesday 31st August, tomorrow. There's Blessed Sacrament, that will be available on Friday 2nd. So there's a bit more work taking place there that takes us a bit closer to the line. But even then, there are mitigatory plans and there are cleanup teams assisted ably by Ministry of Implementation to assist in ensuring that the school is ready for Monday 5th. St. George's Anglican Senior School, that will be made available on Friday 2nd. The St. Louis Girls RC, Wednesday 31st. Constantine Methodist, Wednesday 31st. St. David's RC, and St. David's RC is one of those schools where when they engage the routine repairs, they recognize that the needs exceeded the scope of works as was initially envisaged. And so, but even then, there's a mitigation plan where, with the assistance of members of the community, they were able to identify. So part of that school will have to be relocated while they address the repairs on one section of the school. It would be cordoned off and carefully secured to make sure there's no risk to our student population on Monday. And there'll be 3 grades using the community center. And with the assistance of the community and very helpful residents, we're working along with education and Ministry of Works, Ministry of Implementation, to prepare the site appropriately for housing those students and those grades on the 5th. So even then, school is going to resume relatively as per usual, bearing those adjustments in St. David's RC on the 5th of September. Happy Hill Secondary, we expect to have that facility handed over by Friday, September 2nd, and the Grenville Secondary School likewise. And these come to me based on information from our project officer working in collaboration with Ministry of Works and the engineers that are responsible for school repairs. So I am ably guided by that. Now there is also ongoing repairs in some schools, but nothing that would affect the ability of the schools to welcome and receive students safely on Monday 5th September. So we are happy to report that. So whatever other works that may be taking place will not interrupt the school. Now you may hear of some other projects, but some of those are going to be, they wouldn't affect school, and so we wouldn't necessarily discuss them at this point, right? As it relates to that, let me just thank the members of the community, because in some of the schools we found quite a lot of community support and participation to see the schools back in place. For instance, we've had crews organizing to help with cleaning, with power washing in some places, wanting to paint, and we appreciate and want to put on record our profound support and appreciation for that kind of support and help that our community residents have given to us in preparing our schools for reopening. We like that, and we commend it and encourage more of it. In terms of I know some persons are concerned about the tuition assistance. Many persons have inquired about that. They've sent applications. We are pleased to report that the persons who Prime Minister's ministry, that those have already been applied. We are still in the process of finalizing those for TAM CC, because we have received for them as well, but be informed that those payments will be applied directly to the colleges, right? The schools where you applied to. For those persons who are looking for word as it relates to the UWI scholarships, whether the master's programs and the bachelor's programs that you have applied to, allay your fears. The cabinet did approve a listing of, I'm subject to correction, but close to 16 or 17 awards for the master's level, and close to 42 at the bachelor's level. And that was recently approved by the cabinet. So for those of you who did apply, feel comfortable that you met the criteria, that you have been successful. Also too, I want to assure you that the approval of the economic cost for students attending the University of the West Indies, and I am particularly happy to declare that in our previous cabinet sitting, there was a conclusion to overturn the long-standing prohibition of students pursuing medicine and law from accessing economic cost. So we have now changed that and reverted to all students going to the University of the West Indies overseas campuses accessing the economic cost, because it's an arrangement that's available to all of our students who sign up with the University of the West Indies and who are citizens from our members' territories. So I'm pleased to report that that was approved as well. And on the issue of, there are a couple of concerns relating to cooks, some cleaners, and some groundsmen who some schools are in limbo. And let me say in passing, the ministry has had some contractual arrangement at one point with faith organization, and given where that is at the moment, there are several questions, there are several questionable things that raise red flags that allow this particular organization to be, and the contractual arrangement to be under review. Now, this organization formerly supplied cooks and cleaners, not to all schools, because the ministry has its own program of hiring cooks, cleaners, and groundsmen. However, it had become practice that once somebody retired, they were replaced by somebody from that organization. So there are a few schools that are now wondering, what do we do come for the start of the school term, because my cook or my cleaner was under that organization, because we are not as disposed to continue engaging until we have some reasonable direction from the AG's chambers. But what we have done though, we've put measures in place, we've collaborated with our schools, our principals, to ensure that they hire on our behalf a cook for the month of September, a cleaner for the month of September, and a groundsman for the one-off cleaning required for the initial startup of school. Now that's a temporary one-off arrangement, while it gives the ministry chance to carefully put whatever policy directive in place for forward movement. So we have communicated that to the schools, and we've been getting pretty good responses. So the schools are in fact able to rehire and re-engage similar persons who were under that organization, but it just would not be under that arrangement. And we would honor it. We've communicated that to them. So we are assured that come the starting of school, there will be cooks in place, there will be cleaners in place, and there must have been a groundsman, as all hired by the school, and the ministry commits to honoring that. So that solves, we understand that these challenges, they present little glitches and hiccups, but we are pleased that we are finding the solutions. And that's what it's mostly about. Then there's the issue of the uniform assistance program, and I would ask PS Jeffrey to lead on that one, but just suffice me to say, it's been, as we've moved it over, it's provided quite a bit of challenge, but we have found the solutions. PS Jeffrey.
Thank you, Minister, and good morning to the press corps. All right, so as Minister would have indicated, I can announce that the vouchers for pre-primary and primary, not primary, secondary, have all been printed and are available now in the schools for dissemination to parents. Now, I must say that it was a collaborative effort, because what we found happening was that the decision was taken to remove the influence of the constituency offices, because prior to this, all of the collection of data, names, applications and so on were done through the constituency offices. The decision was taken, the policy decision, to move it back to the Ministry of Education through the principals, through the teachers and the schools. So the principals were responsible for that early collection of the data and the vetting of that data. So once this was done, there was also the Ministry of Social Development involved, because we have to remember that there are seed applicants and so on. So that list was sent so they could add, subtract as they see fit, and then it was moved to the Office of the Prime Minister. Now, I must say that the entire process was not taken and sent to Ministry of Education. This will happen later down the road. But for this year, because PMO already has the institutional knowledge, already has the machinery, and of course the budget, the line item for this, so it was left there to operationalize and to print the vouchers. I must put on record my thanks and commendation to PS Carvelet of PMO and her team, because these people, they agreed and they worked assiduously on this over the weekend, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, in order to print vouchers. I must also thank the PS of ICT and his team, and that's me, because ICT was also involved in producing the database and so on, making it easy and in a form that would make it the process quite simple for the printing of vouchers. So this is where we stand at the moment. The primary school vouchers, most of them are already printed. The finishing touches will be added today, and then we have some other residual applications that will also be entertained today. So this is where we are at the moment. We can say tentatively that we have just around 9,000 applications. All right. So I want to put on record the ministry's thanks also to the principals and the schools. They facilitated this process. Remember that this would have jumped out at them during the vacation, and most of them, they worked during the vacation to collect the data. They worked at both ends of the spectrum. So the collection of data, that was them, and now the dissemination of the vouchers is also theirs. So vouchers are being disseminated during this planning week. I can also add that in going forward, and Minister would have spoken about all of the difficulties that we've had. I think that in going forward, we are looking to employ a greater degree of ICT to this process. Gone should be the days when we are actually printing physical vouchers. A program was started last year, and we will continue with this so that parents can have vouchers via QR codes on their phones and so on. So this is something that we can look forward to in collaboration with ICT as we try to make the process much better.
Excellent. Thank you so much to our panel for these updates, especially from the Ministry of Education for the comprehensive update on all the various programs. So we will now open up to our question and answer segment for this morning. Again, today we're going to try to keep the briefing to 1 hour if possible. So I'd just like to remind our media colleagues, good morning to all of you that are joining us virtually, to prioritize your questions to 2 to give all of our colleagues a chance to get their questions in. And then, of course, if there is time, we will come back around for another round. So if you can go ahead and raise your hand on the Zoom chat if you have a question for one of the members of our panel. Okay, we're going to give the media a chance to get organized and see if they have any questions. I see Nancy. Nancy, good morning. You can go ahead and ask your first question to the panel.
Good morning. My first question is to the Minister of Education. If he could give us an update on the details of what's happening with the reconstruction of Bishop College in Carriacou and the Transportation College. I noticed he mentioned the tuition support, but I'm wondering about the transportation support for students who, need the transportation support to get to university. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your question. So the first, Bishop's College. Now, over the last couple of weeks, we've had a CDBT team come and do a progress report. They've an observation of the progress taking place at Bishop's College. The work is a bit behind schedule, but it is due to be completed within the term. So we couldn't advance that school was going to resume there. But we are quite comfortable that before the end of the term, the project will be completed and be able to hand over to government for full occupation by the start of the next school term. So that's where we are with Bishop's College, and things are going on well. Just a little delayed, but it will be completed based on projection and recent reviews within this term. In terms of the transportation assistance, I am informed that that is taken care of through the SEED program and not the tuition assistance that is catered for within education. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Nancy, do you have another question for the panel?
College, where are the students being relocated then for this term if the construction is continuing there? Thank you, sir.
Sorry, Nancy, we didn't quite hear the complete question. Could you repeat, please?
Where will the students be attending school? What is their location? Thank you.
So if you're talking about Bishop's College, they have been using a facility for quite some time. So they'll continue to use that facility. I can't give you the exact descriptives of it, but they've been using it, and they will continue to use it until such time that the building becomes available. So it's nothing new. It's just that the new building has not yet been completed, and so they will continue to occupy the building where they were until such time. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Do we have any other been so comprehensive in your review that our media colleagues don't have any additional questions? Okay, we're seeing, we have a question from GBN. GBN, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. My question is to the PS. I don't know if you had time to, but I'd like to find out what was the budget for the voucher program, if you can. And since that new measure has been placed back, say, in the schools for the principals to handle, have we seen an increase or a decrease in the number of applicants for the uniform assistance program?
All right, thank you for the question. Well, you have to remember that thus far we are still doing some residual applications, but what we are seeing, the numbers that we are seeing, we are almost on par with previous years. So there has not been too much variance from over previous years. And in terms of the budgetary arrangements, it's somewhere in the region of, I think it's 1.1 million.
Thank you, PS Jeffrey. Kristalina, I believe from GBN, do you have another question for the panel?
No, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We also have a question from Linda Straker. Linda, the floor is yours.
Good morning to you and everyone at the head table. You said we can have two questions. My first question is, can the minister explain to us what gave rise to removing the prohibition for UE? Has there been exceeding amount of requests in these areas of study that government thought it was best to remove it? What really gave rise to that prohibition from UE, removing that prohibition?
Thank you very much. So indeed, that was part of it, because we've had several students feeling deprived and denied of that opportunity simply because of the program of choice. And the reality is, though, that because of the arrangement that participating member states have with the University of the West Indies, there is a fee that we pay anyway to the university, and so there's no real reason to deprive our citizens from enjoying economic cost when there is, if I'm not mistaken, it's a $3 million fee that's paid, I probably can't be corrected, but to the University of the West Indies annually, because we're supporting territories to the university. So all of our students should, in fact, as many as possible, be encouraged to benefit from that because it's part of the agreement. So there's no real reason, in my opinion, to debar anybody except you feel that program is detrimental. And I don't see how that's likely to happen quite easily. So thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Linda, you can go ahead with your second question.
Yes. To the minister, he mentioned that with regard to schools and there will be temporary staff for the month of September. This temporary staff, who will be the employer?
Right. So the ministry commits to doing whatever is required. We'd have to pay technically the government is authorizing principals to engage them on our behalf. The ministry is asking the principals to engage on our behalf. So technically they'll be contracted more or less for the month. So if I should put it that way. It's not the ideal situation, but it's a ready solution to what could be a pretty critical problem.
Thank you, Minister. We have a hand raised by Nisha. Nisha, could you identify what media house you're representing as well before you ask your question?
morning, everyone. My name is Nisha Paul. I'm a freelance journalist currently attached with the New Today newspaper. Okay, so go ahead with my question.
Yes, please. Go ahead, Nisha.
So my first question is for the Minister of Education. It's with regards to the statement made by the former Minister for Education. She would have made a reference to alleged bribery of students by lecturers at TAMCC, inquiring if this is an investigation or something that will be taken up by the new administration.
So thank you very much for that question. At this point, I cannot say. We've just put a council in place and we're working along with council to stabilize the college. If that comes to our attention, it's certainly not something we're going to sit on. It's certainly not something that as a Ministry of Education we are prepared to tolerate. So obviously if it comes to our attention, it's something we are going to act on. But for the moment, it's not something that has come to me, and we are dealing with the priority issues as have surfaced for the survivability of the college at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Nisha, do you have a second question for the panel?
Yes. My second question deals with the nephrology unit. In terms of the persons who have been trained, how many have been trained, and the number of persons that make up that unit for it to function effectively. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. At present, we have one nephrologist. We have 3 house officers attached to the unit. We have a nurse manager and 3 nephrology nurses who have been trained to perform both peritoneal dialysis and hemodialysis at the unit.
Thank you, Dr. Bristol. Okay, is there anyone that is tuning in, our media colleagues, that you may have your hand up that I'm not able to see? Let me know. If not, we will start another round of questions, because we do have some of our journalists that have asked questions that would like to ask some more. Okay? If there are no others, so I will go again to Nancy McGuire. Nancy, you may ask your additional question now.
The TAMCC Council, could you tell us who are on that council? And then what happens after 1 month? In your temporary situation for cleaners, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions. Let me start with the latter first. So what happens after that 1 month? It is our hope that is in relation to the temporary hiring of the cooks, cleaners. It's our intent to do the necessary staff needs assessment and have ministry hire as appropriate thereafter, doing all the necessaries through DPA to regularize those employment arrangements. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen after the month, hopefully. In terms of TAMCC Council, right, I was wondering if I had them. So we have, as chair of the council, Dr. Wendy Grenade. As deputy chair, Mr. Larry Barry. We have principal, Dr. Roland Brunton. We have the chief education officer, Mrs. Angela Finlay. We have the representatives of both unions, the GUT, Mr. Jude Bartholomew, and Mr. Brian Grimes of the Public Workers Union. We have Miss Althea Dowden for the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We have Mr. Devon George representing the agricultural sector. We have Miss Samantha Purcell representing principals of the Secondary Schools Principals Association. We have Mr. Joshua Andel, who is a student representative, the president of the Students' Council. we have Mr. Jason Williams, representing the Association of Professional Engineers, and we have Mr. Walter Simmons, Dr. Walter Simmons, the tourism representative. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We now invite GBN. GBN, you can go ahead with your additional question.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask another question. It's to the Minister for Education. I know, well, say some or most of the schools are now enjoying what we call free education. And you mentioned that TAMCC would have had a little bit of a delay as you put structures in place. Have there been any strides made towards TAMCC enjoying the same free education as the other schools, primary and secondary? That's one of my questions.
Yes, thank you. I will say yes, because addressing the survivability of the college is, in my view, the first step. It's probably useless to dig too deeply into free and no charges for tuition there when there are several issues. There are several issues, admittedly, and so we want to address and stabilize the college as much as is possible and be able to strengthen our college. But yes, conceptually, they are on the burner to receive that assistance and freedom as well. So hopefully sooner than later that will come. But stabilization first.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. If you have another question, you can go ahead and ask it now. Thank you,
Yes,
Christelina.
Thank you. Again, to the Minister, I know that the former administration did put a committee in place at the TAMCC to look into matters there and to submit a report after perhaps a couple months and so on to make recommendations for the improvement of the college. I heard you mention of a council that is now in place. Has that council replaced the committee that was there from the former administration to do say likewise?
No. In fact, the council to which I refer is required according to the TAMCC Act. So that council is responsible for managing the operations of the college. That committee ought to have been a committee that did a review probably on the challenges surrounding the college and to make recommendations. I think I've seen, not with any great detail, a report coming from one of those committees, and there has also been other reviews, like one commissioned through the Sir Arthur Lockjack Institute out of Trinidad and Tobago. And so all of those findings are there, and part of the mandate of the new council is to dig into those and pull off the best recommendations for actioning to improve the fortunes of the college. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We welcome Callistra Farrier. Callistra, the floor is yours. You may go ahead and ask your first questions at the panel.
Good morning, Minister of Education. On the issue of economic costs that is now available for law and medicine, are we finding that the country needs more lawyers as part of its development agenda?
I can't answer affirmatively because no study was clinically done, but I would answer only on the premise that I just think, based on what I shared, the fact that the fee is payable to the University of the West Indies and that all citizens can access it, and whether we send 10 students or we send 100 students, that fee is going to be payable to the University of the West Indies. And so on that ground alone, it makes a bit of logical sense to allow persons to pursue the courses of interest. The issue of what is strategically required for our country's development is something that concerns us a lot, and it's something we have discussed. There are some priority areas that we are redefining, that we are reshaping, that we are engaging our foreign partners on. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for instance, is actively engaging some of our scholarship donors, because there are some key areas that, based on our agenda, we want to see more scholarships given in some of those areas. So while we are concerned and interested in ensuring that there are more areas in keeping with our agenda, our developmental and transformative agenda, we just recognize that this is a facility that's available to all citizens of contributing member states to the University of the West Indies, and we just want to make people available to have them. So that's the ground on which it was done. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Kalistra, do you have a second question for the panel?
And so, I do. And so students who applied, did any students apply for areas like agriculture or engineering or information technology, apply for economic costs, and did they all get approved?
The answer is yes. I have seen information technology. I have seen economics. You call another one. I have seen a few of those. Any student who meets the
technology and engineering
the requirement, the required GPA, will be afforded those facilities. So anybody who applies to any University of the West Indies gets accepted and maintains the required GPA as comes with the program will be afforded that scholarship.
Thank you, Minister. We will now take our final question from Linda Straker.
Yeah.
Linda, your hand is raised before we allow for final comments from our panel.
Thank you. My question has to, can the minister tell us what year that prohibition with regard to UE went into effect? And can I ask the second question now?
Sorry, allow for answer to the first question and then you'll ask the second. Thank you.
So I think it's 2014, because I think in the submission we had to revert and revoke the prohibition established in 2014. So I think that was the time it was enforced.
Thank you. Go ahead, Linda.
Right. My other question has to do with COVID. What is this current government policy with regard to students and COVID vaccination? Is it something that is being encouraged, or it is still left up to parents? Because I knew we recently got a multiple amount of vaccine for children from the U.S. government. What's the government way of ensuring that these are used and not become expired and has to be dumped?
Right, so thank you. We continue to encourage persons to explore all of the options for treatment and prevention and keeping themselves safe and secure. I mean, I probably wish the Minister of Health were here to be able to answer that. But so we continue to encourage persons, and we continue to let them know that vaccination is indeed a viable option that they can pursue. As to whether or not we are going to have mandates, I'm not sure at this point that we will. But in fact, we've had tougher periods, and that wasn't the case. So I would struggle to think that we'd probably try to do that in a time when the risk seems apparently less. But we continue to encourage persons to use all of the options available to maintain health and safety, and to consider vaccination as an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And that will conclude our question and answer segment of this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. To our media colleagues, if you have any additional questions following the briefing, please feel free to reach out to us, and we will be happy to channel those questions to the relevant department and ministries for response for you. So to wrap up, I invite Dr. Jermaine Bristol to give us her closing remarks.
Thank you. In lieu of the fact that my boss, Dr. Donald, was not here, there are some points that she was going to address. So just for clarification, now once we officially launch our hemodialysis, that is pending receiving the results from our testing, it would not be free to everyone, right? So there is a tier system by which patients requiring treatment will be assessed by the social worker and assigned into a tier system for which there are different costs. Now, tier 1, which is basically for persons coming from overseas or persons who have health insurance, they will be paying a fee of $660 per hemodialysis session, which is going to give them about a monthly cost of about $7,920. And for peritoneal dialysis, persons falling in that same tier 1, they would be paying $5,010 for the peritoneal dialysis. Around the world, peritoneal dialysis is always cheaper than hemodialysis, right? For the tier 2, who are basically the persons who are not insured but have the financial means to pay for their treatment, they'll be paying $440 per session for the hemodialysis, which amounts to about $5,280 a month, as opposed to the peritoneal dialysis, where they will be paying $3,045 per month. For the tier 3, who are basically the vulnerable persons benefiting from the SEED program, they'll be paying $125 out of pocket per hemodialysis treatment, which amounts to about $1,500 a month. And the peritoneal dialysis patients would be paying $1,000 per month. And then, as per cabinet, there are persons who are going to meet the criteria for exemption, and they would have to pay nothing out of pocket. So that was just the financial information that the public should be aware of. Hemodialysis would be given 3 times per week, whereas the peritoneal dialysis persons will be doing that at home every day, approximately 3 exchanges per day. So that is how it works out.
Thank you, Dr. Bristol. Again, to our media colleagues, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to send those in, and we will seek to get responses for you. I now invite Permanent Secretary Finley Jeffrey for any closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Persec. Well, for me, all I think I would want to say is that the work of the Ministry of Education continues. As a matter of fact, we are in very, very much high gear at this time as we prepare for to welcome students for the new school year. I must also say that teachers and principals, we must be high in praise for them, and we expect that this school year quite a number of things that were not there previously over the last couple of years. We expect that they will be back, as the Prime Minister would have said. Let there be peace on earth, especially as it relates to the school system. So we expect that the holistic development of the students will be back in terms of sports, in terms of culture, in terms of the whole gamut of things. So we are really looking forward to it, and we want to praise our principals, our staff, their staff, and also the staff of the Ministry of Education, because during this transition time, and since I've stepped back into the Ministry of Education, what I've welcomed and what I've met is a very hard-working, committed staff who are going the extra mile. And I believe that there are bumps in the road. That's how education is. You are confronted with a lot of things, but that's just the landscape of education. But I believe that we'll have a very good year going forward, and with Minister Andrew at the helm, I have full confidence, that education will go from strength to strength as we continue to develop and roll out the government's mandate for education.
Thank you, P.S. Jeffrey. And now for the final word, we invite the Honourable Minister, David Andrew.
Thank you very much, Pressec. And let me thank all the members of the media for your questions, and all those who followed, commented, Let me add my own layer of thanks to those that PS Jeffrey echoed. And let me say, I am quite aware that this period of transition, as we shift things around and move them from different places, being a new administration, I'm pretty young in it, there will obviously be glitches. So I beg for persons' understanding and patience. And so far we've been having it. So thank you for that. So parents, stakeholders, teachers, educators, principals, we beg your patience as we work together. But so far we've been having it and we are very grateful. And so we thank you for that, but we look forward to that kind of continued collaboration. I want to further say that whatever glitch or challenge we see at this time, let's see it as an opportunity to build resilience. Because sometimes we talk about Grenada as a resilient people. We talk about Grenada as a resilient society and Grenadians being a resilient people. But these are opportunities that are provided to us through which we can build our resilient muscles. And so I want to encourage all of us, and I look forward eagerly and optimistically to a very successful 2022-2023 academic year. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister, and to our distinguished panel, thank you for joining us this morning. To our media colleagues and all of our viewers across Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, and those of you in the diaspora, thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for your engagement. Before we wrap up today, I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome one and all to tune in to the opening of Parliament that will be happening tomorrow, August 31st at 10 a.m. We will be streaming the opening of Parliament live on the GIS channel 22 and also via our social media pages on Facebook and on YouTube. So be sure to follow us. Some highlights that you can expect, of course, is the throne speech from the Governor General, also the swearing in of our members of Parliament, the election of the President of the Senate and Deputy of the Senate, and of course, the election of the Speaker of the House and Deputy Speaker of the House. To those of you that may be thinking to join the proceedings in person, parking will be limited at Parliament. Please leave early. And of course, if you would like to try to help with decongesting what we imagine will be a traffic situation, you can tune in to the live stream from home, where you'll have a front seat row to see all of the proceedings at our opening of Parliament. So with that, I leave you. Thank you for joining us today, and until the next press briefing.